Welcome back into college football, every game on the board podcast, part number 5. Our closer, Rob Veno, at Rob Veno Sports on Twitter. Check him out, wagertalk.com. Robbie, welcome in. How you feeling?
I am good today, Drew. How about yourself? Always a good segment each and every week.
Oh, it is, man. One of my faves. And we got Robbie, by the way, down to the end of the card, guys. And if you're new to every game on the board, we're just going down in numerical order. Those little numbers next to the team name. Go to the live odds screen on wagertalk.com. This is the final segment. First 4 segments below, at Drew Martin Bets on Twitter, at Rob Veno Sports on Twitter. You can watch it, Drew Martin Bets on YouTube and the Wager Talk YouTube channel as well. Smash that like button if you're liking the content, and feel free to comment below what you're betting. Any questions, all is welcome. So starting off here, top of this segment here, Robbie, a couple good games on this slate. Excited for your opinion. 403, 404, UCF in Memphis. We're seeing the Golden Knights minus 3.5 on the road, 58.5 being the total. They're getting a little bit too much credit here, Robbie. I mean, UCF usually doesn't travel well up north. Going to the Liberty Bowl here, what are you liking?
Well, it's tough to tell right off the bat because we don't know the status of John Rhys Plumlee. Right now, a question mark. If he goes, Drew, I kind of like UCF's chances because I like their defense at this point in time. Shown up big in some big games so far. They're in contention still for the AAC championship game. They're right there, so they really can't afford to stumble in this one. However, Memphis does present a pretty difficult challenge, especially on the offensive end when it comes to throwing the football. So for me, if Plumlee can't go, we see this game down to 3.5 right now. I feel like the Central Florida pass defense and pass rush in particular has to show up in this game. I happen to feel like they can, but as you mentioned, the bounce house and the road are different animals for UCF at most times, really, to tell you the truth. So I think I'll wait on the Plumlee announcement. I guess if you have a little bit of inside at this point in time, which I don't happen to have, I tried to read as much as I could to see if I could read between the lines and see if he's going to play or not. If you have a little inside and you think he's going to go, 3.5 is probably a good price. Because it'll only go up if he's announced in. But at this point in time, Drew, it's kind of hard to make a definitive commitment to one side or the other, total one way or the other, without knowing if he's going to play. Despite the fact that he's an erratic thrower, he's an intricate part of that Gus Malzahn offense.
Yeah, he struggles throwing the ball deep, past like 30 yards. He doesn't have a lot of touch, but he is a heck of an athlete. Used to play wide receiver there for Ole Miss. Good one to start off. Heading to the Big 12 up next, Robbie. West Virginia and Iowa State. 3:30 Eastern here. Total of 50. Iowa State -7 in Ames. I had the Mountaineers circled here, Rob. What, are you liking anything?
Yeah, their running back situation is kind of dire at this point, Drew. They were without their number 2 running back, Tony Mathis Jr., last week, only to have their number 1 running back, C.J. Donaldson, go down. Now, just to tell you what those two guys are worth. By the way, Donaldson went down last week against TCU. What they're worth is 1,018 rushing yards on the season. They combined for 67% of the carries. The third guy in who played last week, Justin Johnson Jr., 65 rush attempts on the season, 4.4 per carry. But in that game against TCU last week, that up and down score fest, 10 carries, only 36 yards. Now, we're not positive that both of these backs, that Mathis is out for this game. Donaldson, the number 1, is out for the year. So you can scratch him. Mathis, possibly, no commitment yet. They could be down to a third-team running back here, which would put an awful lot of pressure on JT Daniels and the pass game, which is capable. But the weather's not great in Ames this week, Drew. 35 to 39 degrees. Not that the Mountaineers wouldn't be used to cold, but there is up to 17-mile-an-hour winds. Not much chance of rain. I'd love to be on West Virginia because Iowa State can't move the football. And as bad as West Virginia's defense is, this could be the perfect elixir facing this offense. And boy, real quick, doesn't it show how good Brock Purdy and Breece Hall were for Iowa State that they can't do anything offensively this year? Those guys moved the football up and down for 3 years straight. I lean West Virginia. I worry about the running back situation. Probably lean a little bit toward the under as well, Drew. Iowa State's been nothing but an under team for the majority of this season.
Yeah, total of 50. Watch the weather as well. Good point there, Robbie. As we head into November, always an important part of the handicap. 3:30 Eastern for the next kick, 12:30 Pacific. New Mexico and Utah State. Mountain West action here, Robbie. Minus 16.5. That's Utah State at home. 42.5 being the total, like in anything in Logan, Utah.
Weather no more important than in this game, Drew. Logan, Utah at 1:30 in the afternoon Mountain Standard Time is going to be under siege. Rain between 79 and 85% all 4 quarters. So you're going to see rain. That's okay. You're going to see 11 to 13 mile per hour winds. And it's going to be cold rain, 32 to 34 degrees. So this is a nasty track to play on here in this game. Both teams are off of a bye week. But let's look at New Mexico real quick here, Drew. You know, they fired their offensive coordinator 3 weeks ago and have played 2 games since under their new offensive coordinator, who, by the way, just became quarterbacks coach this year, Heath Ridenour. They just elevated him from quarterbacks coach. He was there for 5 games. Now you're the OC. In the 2 games that he's been the offensive coordinator, New Mexico has scored 9 points in each game, didn't make it to 10 in either game. 269 total yards against New Mexico State, and back that up with 138 total yards against Fresno State. So it's not good offensively. The bye week probably couldn't have come at a better time for New Mexico to have an extra week to try and work some kinks out with this offense, which wasn't good to begin with. Feel like Utah State is definitely the better team, although I really do like Rocky Long's defense. I just think they get overused, and maybe, Drew, the bye week helps that defense as well, which is on the field constantly because the offense can't move the football. One thing about these 2 teams in the bad weather, neither one really relies on the passing game. Play calling percentage-wise, Utah State, 59% run, 41% pass this season. New Mexico, 63% run, 37% pass. So they're both heavy run-oriented teams in cold weather with rain on the field. You know, that's what the surface up there is like game day grass at Utah State. So it could get a little slick. You know, I don't want to lay 16 points in bad weather. My power ratings say they should only be 12. But with the way this offense is playing under the new offensive coordinator, it just looks to me like New Mexico's searching for anything on offense. It's possible, Drew, that a turnover or 2 could help New Mexico out here, but I'm not willing to take the chance. I don't know that I like either side. I'd probably pass. Rob
Veno, wagertalk.com, bringing the heat. Great analysis there, Robbie, in the Mountain West. Let's head a little bit more east here to the great state of Alabama. UTSA and UAB. Pick'em price here, Robbie. 52 being the total. I don't know, Rob. I kind of like the under here, man. 52. What are you liking? UTSA and UAB.
Well, the shift in the line from UTSA minus 1.5 where it opened down to pick might indicate that UAB quarterback Dylan Hopkins is going to play here. He hasn't played the majority of the last 2 games. Got knocked out in the game against Western Kentucky a couple of weeks ago. Did not play against Florida Atlantic last week. The offense was not very point productive in either of those games against pretty good CUSA teams. But like I say, the move to pick there's still a question mark next to his name, Drew, but it might suggest that somebody thinks Dylan Hopkins is going to play here for what that's worth, if you like Hopkins at quarterback. The backup, Jacob Zeno, will remember him. He transferred out of Baylor. He was one of like 4 or 5 quarterbacks that played due to injury a couple of years ago when Matt Rule was the head coach at Baylor. And I think he even played in an important game down the stretch, but he hasn't been that great in relief of Dylan Hopkins. So in 2 games, he's gone 21 of 42. It's only 50%, 225 yards. Here's what's tricky about UAB, Drew. It's a team that loves to run the football, right? They love to run and play defense. So the last 2 weeks against, like I say, two pretty good CUSA teams, they run for 228 yards, 5.8 per carry against Western Kentucky. Sounds great, 228 rushing yards, but they only scored 17 points. Come back last week, rushed for 280 yards, 6.7 a carry. Sounds even better against FAU. They still only score 17 points. So it's an offense that's not really getting it into the end zone. Whether or not that's solely due to the absence of Dylan Hopkins, I'm not sure. But I trust Frank Harris and UTSA off a bye offensively a lot more. That's an explosive offense that UAB, probably as good a defense as they are, will have their hands full with. I think I lean Texas San Antonio no matter who the quarterback is for UAB in this game. And real quick here, yeah. I'm going to take that back real quick because we did a show, Drew, and I got a comment from somebody who said they have zero respect for anybody who says Texas San Antonio. So I'm going to take it back and say UTSA and hope I gain a little respect from that person.
Really? Why? What do you think they have against Texas San Antonio?
I don't know. It could be a person who goes to that school and just wants to be referred to by the acronym UTSA. So, I'm used to both, but before I get myself negative comments, I'll take that one back.
Yeah, I've heard that from different schools. They're particular. And UCF is kind of like that. They don't want to be called Central Florida for. Right. Same thing with Florida Atlantic. I don't know. I don't know why. We have to get an alumni on here.
You know what? And like I still call them UL Lafayette, but they want to be called Louisiana.
They do. Nowadays. They really do. I don't know.
I go back and forth.
Yeah, the Raging Cajuns so much better. One of the best names out there, guys. The reason I was saying towards the under. Both these two teams have combined for 6 straight unders. UAB, one of the slowest paced teams in the country, letting 29 seconds roll off the clock in between snaps. And UTSA has been going slower as well. Saw them in person only put up, 30, maybe 40 points against FIU. The offense didn't look all that great. So 52 is the total. I was looking towards the under. We got next game up, Alabama and LSU heading to the Bayou here, Robbie, 7:00 in Baton Rouge, 56.5 being the total, -13 in the hook. That's Alabama as the road favorite. Top 10 matchup here. What are you liking in Baton Rouge?
I think I like over, Drew, to tell you the truth. I think that Bryce Young in the Alabama offense can get the job done from what I've seen against LSU's defense. LSU's making improvements, but I think the major improvements out of LSU have been on the offensive side, especially quarterback Jaden Daniels, who has we all know that he can run. We know from Arizona State he's a very good dual threat, but we've known him for the most part, and even into this season, as a somewhat inaccurate or inconsistent passer, completion percentage-wise. But the last 3 weeks, he's kind of straightened that out. And LSU's got an explosive wide receiving core led by Keyshawn Boutte. And so I think, after what we saw Tennessee do with their wide receivers, Drew, I wonder if Alabama learned any lessons. Not that LSU plays offense the same exact way as Josh Heupel runs his offense at Tennessee, but the talent level at the wide receiving core, for LSU, I think is very comparable to Tennessee's. And there could be some holes in that Alabama secondary. They've been unsteady for the most part this season. And I think with Daniels throwing the ball the way he's been throwing it, and always with the threat of him as a dual threat in the RPO game, I can see LSU at home getting their share of points. And I don't think they can stay. Alabama still is an explosive offensive unit. So to me, anything under 60 look low. I'm going to look that way. As far as the number goes, Alabama -13. I'll get to another point here right now, Drew. The fact that Alabama came out in those college football playoff rankings as number 6. Number 6 means you got work to do. And LSU right now, I don't think we would have said this a few weeks back, but right now they represent a good win. If you beat LSU in LSU, it's now looked upon, because they picked up their season under Brian Kelly, it's looked upon as a pretty good win. So I think Alabama has to have style points. I think they have to go in there and score. That's how you get style points. I like over here. I think Alabama will win the game. Just don't want to lay 13 because LSU's on a pretty good run right now, and they are at home. That's a tough place to play. But I do think it's going to get up and over 60 points, so I'll play over the total here.
Making our way down every game on the board. In the last section for this week, college football can catch it each and every week throughout the regular season and bowl season at Drew Martin Bets, at Rob Veno Sports. Drew Martin Bets on YouTube and the Wager Talk YouTube channel as well. Please smash that like button. Feel free to reply below as we go from Baton Rouge, Louisiana to Denton, Texas. 4:13, 4:14, 4 o'clock Eastern kick here, Robbie. FIU at North Texas. That's Florida International at North Texas here. -21. That's the mean green as the home favorite. 62 being the total. Are you liking anything with the Panthers and the mean green?
Yeah, a couple of games back, you made the observation that you weren't too impressed with UTSA and their 30 points against Florida International. And it seems like that's the game where FIU has suddenly turned a corner and played better, right? They've played 3 consecutive good games in a row, all 3 ATS covers. How good are they, right? I mean, I don't know how good this team is. Now, North Texas comes in, and all of a sudden, they're in play for the Conference USA title. The offense under Seth Luttrell, we know, is really, really good. Last year, I had no problem. They played this game late in the season. I had no problem laying 2 touchdowns with UNT. They were kind of a team. And in fact, it looks like the same type of season, Drew, where if you go back and look, North Texas surged at the end of the year last year. Maybe the last 4 games, they were really good. I think they beat UTSA along the way, who ended up winning Conference USA and the championship. But they look like they're on their way again under Seth Luttrell. So obviously, to his credit, he brings his team along throughout the season pretty well. But the Florida International story gets better and better. And I don't know that I want to lay 21.5 against a team that maybe has found enough to become competitive. I keep raising their power rating. And even though I've raised it each of the last 3 weeks, I still show UNT 23.5 better at this venue at home in Denton, Texas. No weather concerns here. Be a good track. UNT is a very tough offense to stop. But still, I don't think I want to lay the points just because of the way FIU is playing right now. They've suddenly become competitive in their conference. North Texas probably wins, but we'll lay off this one, Drew, and see what Florida International does.
Yeah, watch out there in West Miami, guys. They've covered 3 straight, won 2 straight straight up, and they find themselves 4-4 with 4 games left. Robbie, they could actually go to a bowl game. Unbelievable job by Mike McIntyre. We got South Alabama, Georgia Southern up next. Not Alabama versus Georgia, South Alabama versus Georgia Southern in the Sun Belt action here. 4:15, 4:16, -4. That's USA on the road. 60.5 being the total in Statesboro.
Yeah, and the Georgia Southern team, Drew, is, they're very one-dimensional now. And it's so funny to see this change, but we knew it was coming in the offseason, right? They went from their so-called option, not so-called, but it was an option offense. I think it was a little bit modified option the last couple of years, but now they're full air raid. Throw the football all around the yard. And South Alabama's pass defense, which has pretty gaudy defensive statistics, is going to get tested. It's been tested a couple times this year, and it didn't really post the same type of numbers that you see as their overall statistics for the year. UCLA got them pretty good through the air because they were capable. UL Monroe, here's what I come to in this game, Drew. UL Monroe goes 20 of 27 passing the football for 371 yards against South Alabama. So again, sometimes statistics are skewed because of the opposition that you play. And in South Alabama's case, they haven't played a lot of capable passing offenses. And this is more than capable of a passing offense in Georgia Southern. So when I saw the total click up 60 to 60.5, I think those guys might be onto something, whoever it was, or, ladies who played the game up and over. I think that could be the way to go here. I think Georgia Southern wants to get you into a track meet. South Alabama certainly is capable of scoring as well because Georgia Southern's defense is nothing to write home about. South Alabama is the better team, top to bottom. But as we know, styles make these matchups. And I just think that South Alabama, unless they get to the quarterback here and get there often, I think that secondary might get lit up by Georgia Southern. So to me, looking at a 34-31 game, not out of the realm of possibility, I'll probably play it that way. USA, Georgia Southern over the number.
Both teams have trended to the over. Something to watch there. Maybe some points in Statesboro as we go from Statesboro, Georgia to Monroe, Louisiana, staying in the Sun Belt here. Texas State at UL Monroe, 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock local time kick here, Robbie. -1.5. That is the Warhawks at home. Texas State, the Bobcats on the road, 52.5 being the total. Liking anything in Monroe, Robbie?
You know, I'm a little bit partial to Texas State because I like what they're trying to do down there, but it never seems to amount to anything consistent, Drew. Like they show up and you like what you see, and then the next week you bet them and you don't like what you see. So I have a hard time with them. UL Monroe under Terry Bowden, they've also had a couple of, splashes so far this season. So it basically have two identical sides. UTSA, for what it's worth, and their hurry up style and their pass oriented style, they don't complete an awful lot of balls downfield. You watch them go and it's a lot of 6 yard, 8 yard, incomplete, 8 yards. So we don't get chunk plays. My first inclination was to look to the over, but when I thought about the number of times I've seen Texas State play and how that offense bogs down, I just can't guess that this will be the week where they score a lot of points. I think the home team's probably the right side. Again, don't want to mislead anybody because I don't have a play on the game, but I'm just trying to tell you what my process was in thinking this one through. I feel like UL Monroe at home probably has the slight edge. Again, this is probably a game. These two teams are both, let me say this. If you watch enough of these two teams, you'll rip your hair out because they're two teams that are good enough to go from 20-20 and then miss a field goal or turn the ball over, one or the other, and not score any points for you. So it's hard to choose between, but I think if I had to, Drew, I would lean UL Monroe here.
2 games left, guys. 4:19, 4:20 up next, 7 o'clock Eastern, UNLV, San Diego State, Mountain West action, 47 being the total, -6 in the hook. That's the Aztecs in San Diego.
For UNLV, Drew, quarterback Doug Brumfeld is expected back, and this is a huge get for them because with him back, they're a far better offense than they are without him. San Diego State is interesting. The last couple of weeks, they've really turned to the air, and we don't know San Diego State as a throwing football team, but they made a quarterback switch, and all of a sudden, they're passing the ball a little bit more, and they're doing it rather effectively. So I think you're getting San Diego State totals lined at San Diego State reputation prices rather than what's going on right now. And again, it's a good thing to have a game like this to talk about, Drew, so we can tell the people watching or the people listening that if throughout a college football season, when you get to this final third, there's a lot of changes going on with a lot of teams. Injuries force that. Coaching philosophy heading into next year does that. You want to look at different guys. And for San Diego State, that's what's happened here. So you can probably capitalize. I think with Brumfeld back especially, that's what sold me on this game over because I think UNLV can get their share of points. San Diego State for years and years and years. Run the football, play defense, run the football, play defense. Not so right now. Throw the football, effectively throw the football, mixed in with the run. And I think 47, like I say, is a reputation price. So I think over 47 might be a good way to go there.
And Robbie, just to dig in a little bit deeper, because I agree with where you're going with that. This time of year, finding that type of change, that's how you can kind of, in my opinion, that's the best way to win in this industry. When did you notice that? And what caused that with the Aztecs change?
I've read it. maybe about 8-9 days ago, and it was a quarterback change. It was just, we're not being effective offensively, and this happens, right, Drew? We see it all the time. Quarterback's ineffective. Let's try something else, and all of a sudden, it took off for them. I don't want to say it took off because it's only 2 games, but I will say that they're throwing it better and they're throwing it a little more often. I don't want to make it seem like San Diego State's a 90% air raid throw team now.
Yeah.
But they're mixing it in, and it's working a little bit for them. They're getting like 250 a game throwing the football now, which is big for San Diego State.
Sure. Okay. So 2 games ago, maybe saw the difference. Okay. We got 1 game left here, guys. Check out Rob Veno, wagertalk.com, at Rob Veno Sports on Twitter. Obviously knows his college football, knows NBA as well, MLB, the World Series. So a lot to check out there for Rob Veno. Rob, big one to close it here. Last game on the card in terms of rotation number. Not necessarily in terms of kickoff time, 7:30 Eastern, Clemson at Notre Dame. Clemson Tigers -3.5 point road favorites. They are -4 at a shop or two here. Total of 44. Low total here, Robbie, in South Bend, Indiana. I don't know, man. I like the Irish. Touchdown Jesus at home. Laying points with Clemson in the top 4. I think Notre Dame's playing a lot better here, Robbie, winning 5 of 6. What do you like in Clemson and Notre Dame?
Yeah, I'm with you, Drew. I really am. My power rating showed Notre Dame to be a 1-point favorite in this game. So certainly if I'm just looking at that, which I'm not, but that leads me somewhat in that direction. I'll say this. The fact that they're playing this game at 7:30 at night in South Bend was great timing. Because if you look at the weather report for the rest of that day up until 7 o'clock at night, it's a mess. 20 to 26 mile an hour winds, rain all day, and the bad weather just suddenly clears out at 7 o'clock. As you mentioned, touchdown Jesus, maybe something to do with that weather moving out of there, at least due to the current weather report. So we're going to see mostly clear weather, 44 to 54 degrees from what I have here. Only a 3 to 4% chance of rain and mild winds, somewhere between 12 and 18. I think both quarterbacks good enough to cut through it. Clemson's under pressure. You and I talked about this yesterday, number 4 in the CFP rankings. I think that they have to be impressive. I don't know how impressive they can be. DJ Uiagalelei, he was just benched 2 games ago, and now you're bringing him back. So Notre Dame at home this year has not been good against the spread, 0-4 in that role. However, when you place them as an underdog this year, they're 2-0. Covered against Ohio State, won outright at UNC. So good underdog team. I think the 0-4 at home might change here because of the atmosphere, the crowd, the way Notre Dame is playing at this point in time. They've both beaten Syracuse within the last 2 weeks. Notre Dame score-wise beat them worse. Total yardage-wise, Clemson beat them worse, so not much to gain there. Both pretty good run teams. I said this to you yesterday, Drew, and I believe this is true, that early play scripts offensively, first 15 plays, first 20 plays to start the game, are going to be big here. And I think that Notre Dame realizes we can't just come out and hand the ball off and make a lot of headway against the Clemson defense. So I think you might see some stuff, some attack, home run style plays early on here. If that's the case, you may get some early points. The first half total is only at 22, and now that the weather is clear, maybe we can get that thing up and over. I liked it yesterday before I saw the weather report clearing out. Now that I see that, I probably like it a little bit more. I think this game might get some early shots and then maybe settle in from there. I agree with you that the points are worth taking, and I think a first half over 22 might be worth a look.
Rob Veno bringing the heat, as always, our closer this week. Every game on the board. Robbie, do you have a most confident play of the section, one you like the most? You gave out a lot of good information here, man. I'm about to research, go in deep on some of this, some of these kind of stats and trends and changes you brought up. Always a pleasure to have you, Robbie. Do you have a most confident play and any final thoughts before we shut it down?
Yeah, well, obviously, on final thoughts, we always want to thank the audience and guys that have been loyal to us for years, Drew, every game on the board. This started when Sports Memo was not even under the Wager Talk umbrella, so it's been a long, long time, and guys have followed us a good portion of time. So thank you to everybody who follows and watches. And I'll say this, I think Alabama LSU goes over. I think 58 is way too low. And that, I won't say way too low, but at least a touchdown too low in a game where I see a lot of explosiveness on the offensive sides and maybe not a lot of defensive secondaries that are capable of stopping things. So give me Alabama LSU over 58 as the best bet for this show.
Okay, over 58, best bet for Robbie Veno. Check him out, wagertalk.com. Guys, that does it for the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast. We will be back next week. Please smash that like button. Feel free to reply below and cash those tickets. Have a fun, safe weekend. Thanks for tuning in.